Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today's video features two stamp sets from the, stamp and die sets from the newest release, which is Holiday Wishes. This is Holiday Blooms, which is an Amaryllis set, and then this is the Pine and Berries centerpiece. Both of these are my illustrations. Absolutely super excited about having more stamp sets come out. They're 6x8 sets. Here is kind of the, you guys know I like to share that, like the little preview of how they were in the sketches. That one's almost identical. I don't think I changed much about it at all. Can you see all my scribbles all over it? It's because I left my sketch pad where Miss Jellybean could get it. So this one here is actually part of the lantern set. It's the little decoration where everything is put together with the ribbon and the bells and the holly and pine. And so we're going to use a little bit of both today to do some clean and simple cards. I like to draw my illustrations so that they are fun to color because that is where I find my most fun. And so these Amaryllis are really nicely sized. And then you get a couple of options. So you get a single Amaryllis, then you get one that is like double. They are stalk flowers, so that can sometimes feel maybe a little bit limiting in how you put them together, but we're going to do a little bit of a different card design, like the way that we put it together to kind of switch it up. So you also get a side view and then you get a full bloom. We're going to concentrate mostly on coloring the red versions of these today. You can see that in the card, I did do some candy cane Amaryllis, which are the white and red ones. If you are interested in seeing how those are colored, please let me know. I will do a separate video on that. But because I made 3 cards, you're only going to see 2 in this video, but I made 3 cards at one time. It was a lot of video footage, guys. It was so much. And so I kind of had to pick and choose what I wanted to showcase. Here, I'm going in with my darkest marker to lay down my shadows to kind of just map out where I want it to be the darkest. If you're not comfortable with your alcohol markers or whatever color medium you're using, you can always go in with your lightest color and lay down those shadows. And then that way, if you make any errors or you don't love where you put the shading, you can cover it up. Always easier to cover up your lightest color. But basically, I've given you a lot of little lines in here to indicate where there should be shadows so that you can get some shape to your petals. So I'm doing that with my darkest color. Now I'm going in with my mid-tone. This is an R29. And I'm going to extend out those lines of the darkness. And then I'm also going to just add a little bit, like just extend them out just past that and then start to kind of fill in the petal a little bit. You'll notice that there is still quite a bit of white. And that's because when you're coloring, I like a 4-color blend, but you could certainly do a 2-color blend. So you just have one mid-tone, but your mid-tone should be what you see the most of. So that's like the true color of the object that you're coloring is your mid-tones. And the darkest color is the shadows. The lightest color is your highlights. So you're obviously going to have substantially less shadows and substantially less highlights than you will everything else. So just go over your darkest color and slightly extend that out. If this is, I guess, the best advice that I can give you is you can always make it darker. It's much more challenging to make it lighter. So don't be super heavy-handed with your darks. You can always go back in and make it darker. And most people, honestly, when it comes to Copic coloring, are a little bit scared of the darker colors, which I understand. For a long time, I was as well. But if you want to get some dimension in your coloring, you have to use the darker colors, even if it's just a little bit. So you can see here, this is my second mid-tone, and we're filling in the majority of the petals with this color, and we're just leaving little slivers of white on the highest parts where the petal is coming up or on the edge of the petal. is a great place to leave a highlight, just to get some separation between your petals. And then the lightest color that I'm using is an R32, and that will just go right over those little highlight areas. I tend not to go over the entire petal with this color because it does bleach out the R35 quite a bit. So that is a way, though, if you are too heavy-handed with your darks, you can go back in with your lighter colors and kind of bleach them out a little bit. So this one's just colored up. I'm going to do the center, that super dark red, and then I'm going to do the stamen for this one, a brighter kind of golden yellow combination. For the other one, I'm going to do a dark brown. Neither one of them is wrong. Amaryllis, this is like the really great thing about them. They come in so many colors. Like, there's just a lot of variety. And so a set like this is something that you can use for multiple different things. Flowers you can use for anything. These would be they're great for Christmas, but they're great for really any time of year. They're a floral. So I chose some darker greens, more like true greens, because that's red's natural complement. And if you watch my channel, you know that I don't typically use red and green together because it just screams Christmas to me. So at the time of year when I'm making Christmas cards, like, I almost abuse it because I don't really use it any other time in the year. So I chose like a nice rich green, like true green color. This is an R29, or an R29. What? A G for green, Kelly. A G29, a G17, and a G05. The G05 is a bit bright, but I like a lot of brightness. If you don't want a super bright green, you could go with a G16 as your lightest color, and that would be fine. It would blend in with everything else just fine. For the other ones that you're going to see, I used my more typical yellow-green combination for the candy cane ones, which was a YG03, a YG17, and a YG67. Of course, all of the products will be linked in the description below. This whole release is super beautiful, and I think that's part of the reason why it took me so long to make my cards, because I wanted to use everything. I wanted to use everything, all the things. For this one, I did want to include this just because it is a side view, so it is a little bit of a different angle to be coloring. This petal that is closest to us is obviously turned to the right, so that is going to catch a lot more light, whereas these petals that are tucked behind the stamen are going to be substantially darker. So when you're adding in your shadows, your shadow for that petal that is turned up will actually go underneath. Your darkest portion will be where it's turned back behind. But then the same thing that we did before, we're going to follow those little guidelines, putting in our darkest shadows, just a little line of our darkest color, and then we're going to pull everything out with our next midtone, which is the R29. And then again, the majority of it will be filled in with the R35, and we'll leave just those little slivers of highlights. The only difference here is because we have that petal that is upturned, that petal will have a little bit of the R35, but it will also have quite a bit of the R32 because it is turned back. It's going to catch a lot of the light. So don't worry, we'll get to the the leaf stalk part in just a minute. But the reason that I wanted to include this is because amaryllis has several blooms on its plant. So you could have one amaryllis with several different blooms, and so I wanted you to be able to kind of tuck them in there. Also, it just gives another kind of perspective and makes it a little bit more versatile and interesting to use. So here, again, we're going in with that lightest color. For this one, when I am bringing in the green, the part where the stem is bent over, that's going to be my darkest portion of the stem. So that's where my shadow is going to go, then my midtone, and then my lightest color. The only thing I did different here is I did bring in a YG03 to blend it up into the red, because that color is going to play a little bit nicer. For these stamen, I chose to use the E70 series. It's a cooler brown, and this is one of the combinations that you'll see in nature for amaryllis. They aren't necessarily, the stamen isn't always yellow. There's some where it's a neon green. That's the candy cane one that you see. But these are all of them colored up. There you can see, like, what is that? It's almost 4 inches. So there's a lot of real estate to color there, which makes them super, super fun. And honestly, bigger images are easier to color. So now this is a portion of the lantern stamp. Originally, they were actually supposed to be one stamp set. So we were going to kind of use the amaryllis as a way to decorate the lantern, because they have come out with an amaryllis lovely layers, which is beautiful. But it ended up being that, like, we like the flowers so well that we just decided to turn it into a whole nother set, which I love. The single bloom on the amaryllis, you can still use to decorate your lantern. So for the pine, I used the same greens that you saw before, and I just went in and did flicking motions. This shouldn't be solid. Pine is not solid. You should be able to see some of the white coming through, because you would see that in real life. For this little sprig, I keep wanting to call them picks, because that's what they call them in like Joann Fabrics when you go in there. But it's just like a little sprig of berries. This is something that you can use to decorate your lantern as well. And I'm super excited to use the lantern. Don't get me wrong. I made a card with the lantern. It's not included in this video because I did a little bit of a different technique with it. And so I wanted to be able to fully show that technique. And this video with these 2 cards, even though we're just doing the coloring and it's super clean and simple, it's still like a half an hour long. So I didn't want it to be crazy, crazy long. So watch out for that video. That will be coming soon with the lanterns. So here I went with the more yellow greens. I'm going to go in and color my berries red. You could do them any color you want. You could do them white. You could do whatever kind of color scheme you got going on. Berries come in all kinds of colors. There isn't a right or a wrong way to color them. I do like to add a little bit of shadow to the bottom of each of my berries. Then the majority of it is filled in with my midtone, and then my lightest color this time around will actually be my R35. So these will be slightly darker than my amaryllis, but that's okay because they're actually going on 2 totally different cards. They're going on 2 different cards. But yeah, so the whole release is amazing. I'm super excited about like their 3D bossing and folders. Those are fantastic. And then they have new lovely layers as well. So the whole release, awesome. I don't know it feels so weird to me to make Christmas cards in October, but that's just kind of what our industry is. For my candles, I'm going to color them white, and I'm going to do that with some warm grays. These, when I drew them, they were meant to have like they had been burning and the wax was kind of dripping down. So I'm going to add a little bit of shadow underneath that wax. I'm going to add a little bit of shadow to the bottom, and then I'm going to add a little bit of shadow to the portion where it's burned away and kind of sunk down. This candle, the tallest candle, the one in the back, will have the most shadow because these other 2 candles are in front of it. Again, ton of versatility with the candles. You can color them any color that you want. Candles come in all kinds of colors. You guys know, if you have watched my channel and if you have, seen any of these videos where we're kind of introducing new stamp illustrations, the hands down the most important to me thing when I'm doing an illustration is that it's versatile. I want to come at it from the point of a card maker and like, is this going to be useful enough to me to make it worth my time? And I genuinely hope that, my time and my money, because you guys know me. I hope that is the case. These, I feel like the lantern set is geared a bit more towards winter. Like, it doesn't have to be holiday. You could use this throughout. But then also, any other kind of stamp sets that you have, you could incorporate them into your decorations and do a lantern, for kind of whatever season you wanted. For the flames on the candles. I am going to do kind of that same golden yellow color that I did for the stamen on the amaryllis. And I'm also going to use that to color the bells. So this one below is built as one whole piece. It has the holly, it has the pine, it has the bells. But those are also separate pieces in the set so that you can use them however you would like as individuals. I am showing you the coloring here on this one because it's faster. So I chose to do them gold, and they have, like, your more traditional bells, they have like a little star cutout and the cutouts at the bottom so the noise can get out, so the ringing happens. But I'm going to go in with my darkest color. I'm going to add some shadows kind of around the I don't even know what you call that. The middle part where the bells meet, where the lip of the two bells would come together to form one bell. And then I'm just going to pick a side. In this case, I have the ribbon, so I'm adding shading to the right-hand side of the left one and the left-hand side of the right one. But when you color them and there's no bow, like it's just the bells themselves, you could just pick one side or the other to add your darkest shading to. And then I'm going to blend that out with my second mid-tone, which is a YO8, which is a really, really bright yellow. And then my lightest color is going to be a YO2. I did leave a smidge of white as like my true highlight to make them look shiny. In order to set those cutouts back further, I'm actually going to go in with a W5 and fill them in. This is going to help make the brown that I'm putting over it, that E99, which is my darkest color for the gold, to appear darker because it has that base underneath it. So that way it really looks like, those those stars are cut out of their metal bells. For the holly, I'm doing the same berry combination that we did for the top. These berries are just slightly bigger. Holly berries are just slightly larger. And then we're going to use the yellow-green for the actual holly leaves. The pine will be colored the same way as that other pine branch that we did. So anyway, super happy with the way that the sets turned out. So thrilled that Honeybee asked me to illustrate another set for them. Just endlessly blessed in my job, in my life, but in my job currently, to have the ability to work with all of these amazing companies. I'm super, super grateful. I hope that you guys are enjoying them. Especially with like the lantern set, like I tried to draw it in a way that the perspective was a little bit different than other things that I have seen. I think that perspective switch will just make things more interesting. I love, love, love that the lantern has a die for the outside and a die for the inside. And after we get done doing the coloring here, I am going to spend a little bit of time showing you the die cuts and kind of the arrangements that you can build with them, just to give you some, different ideas. I think I know it is. Jennifer, will say, like, before she decides whether or not she's going to buy a set, she tries to think if there's 5 different ways that she can use it. I think that there's far more than 5 ways that you can use this. I have a ton of ideas, and I really had to kind of I really had to get control of myself, because I was like, oh, I could do this, or I could do that, or I could do this and this and this. So I had to be like, okay, just calm down. Like, it's your first time using it. So for me, clean and simple is my love. I am branching out more creatively. I think if you watch my channel, you guys can probably agree with trying different things. But I still love a clean and simple layout that really just lets the coloring, the focal point just shine. And that hasn't changed in all the years that I have been doing this. I still love a design that really just lets it shine. So this is everything colored. Those are those other elements that I was telling you about, the bells and things like that. This is the lantern itself. I colored it black. And then here is that inside die I was telling you about. So it will cut out the window of the lantern so you can leave it in or not. And then here's all of the pieces cut out. So this is what I was talking about, where you could put the amaryllis together and kind of build your own bouquet. And that would be really beautiful on a card. And you wouldn't have to do much more than that. There's There's a lot of pretty things to look at. For the lantern, there are these little pieces parts. The candles fit directly into the lantern, like the die cut candles fit right in. These little berries, here's something to note. Because of the way that I drew it in a different perspective, when you put the picks in, you'll see that they're down lower on one side than they are on the other. If you want them to sit flush, that right-hand corner, just clip that out and then put your little picks in. Here is the piece that we colored, that little decor piece that's already put together, so you could put your candles in, do the decor piece that's already put together, die cut that out. Here's the amaryllis there. I'm going to put some like pine and holly behind it. That's another way that you can decorate this and kind of make it your own. If you chose to pick up both sets, they will work together. The way that I'm going to use them today is actually I'm not going to use the lantern. I'm just going to use the other images. Here I'm just having fun because I'm just playing around with everything and like seeing all the different ways that you could build it and use it. Because I don't know, because that's fun. Who doesn't want to see what they could, what they could make and build together. So this one that I'm about to show you is really more or less what we're going to do today, which is just using the candles as the focal point and then kind of building out our centerpiece like with the greenery and the berries. You could do the same thing, something similar like this, and then put the lantern behind it, and that would be really pretty. If you really wanted to zhuzh it up, you could put in that same, you could put the top decor piece in. But I really wanted to use them, like I said, so that the coloring would shine, which sometimes means that you have to do a little bit of editing to the other items to really let the coloring be the focal point. Here, what I'm doing is I've chosen a sentiment, but I didn't know what color I wanted to do. So I'm stamping one in our white pigment ink, and then I'm stamping one in the gold pigment ink, and then I'm heat embossing them in their same colors. The funny thing is I didn't use either one of these. I don't even know why I try to use other colors. I don't know. I'm hoping that like someday it clicks and I'm happy with it. I think they're beautiful on other people's cards, but I always go back to black for mine. And that's exactly what I did today. I went back to black cardstock with a gold embossing for all of my cards, and I was perfectly happy with the way that looked. I do not know why I cannot put a sentiment on a piece of colored cardstock and be happy with it. I do not know why that is. The Christmas lantern does not, it has a Merry Christmas sentiment in it. The Holiday Blooms, the Amaryllis set, has tons of really great different sentiments in it. But Honeybee does sentiment sets that are great. There's one that's like Heart Be Light that would go great with the lantern. And there's, just a general Merry Christmas. They have a ton of options over there. So I'm going to cut this out with the coordinating die. And then actually I ended up using both of these to kind of build up my other one. I did do a lot of editing for myself because originally I had like an embossing folder in the background and like all of this stuff. And I was like, no, leave it clean, Kelly. Like leave it clean. But I did add some spatters. Not everybody loves the spatters, but I love a spatter. And especially since I was using the gold embossing powder, I chose to do some gold spatters using my Gold Perfect Pearls and a little bit of water. In this release, Honeybee always has great like gem and pearl stickers that come out. And so they do have the Holiday Wishes pearl stickers, which are fantastic. Winter pearl stickers, which are all like blues, white, and silvers. But honestly, the one I was the most excited about was the metallic one. So it is called Metallic Mix. It is the pearls, but it is it's so good. It's like a copper, a soft gold, a shiny gold, a shiny silver, like a brushed silver, a brushed gold, and then like a pewter color. I'll have to buy 100,000 of these because I love a good metallic. Because I use them all the time. I just use them all the time. So let's talk about building this thing. I told you that a stock flower can sometimes be a little bit misleading and just making you think that you have to use them only one way. I did not want to do that. So I actually chose to do well, for lack of a better term, an S design. So it's going to start in the top left hand corner, and then it will lead your recipient's eye around to the bottom right hand corner. And so it makes it interesting to look at. So because we have quite a, simple kind of design here, it makes your placement a little bit more important. Here, I was trying to slide this one underneath it, and I couldn't get my fingernail underneath it, so I had to grab my my honeybee tweezers to help me out. You can see they don't touch in the center, but that is where we're going to put our sentiment to kind of complete that design. Alternatively, you could do like one in the bottom right hand corner or the top left hand corner, or vice versa. This is me stacking up all those sentiments that I didn't use to make this one thicker. It's not wasteful. I mean, I am still using them. You just can't read the embossing. The embossing is probably a little pointless. But so here I started to put it up toward the top, and I realized that it would be much better if I moved it just a little bit further down. And then in order to fill in those areas in between, I will go in and add some gemstones. For those ones, I actually used last year's mix, which is the Make It Merry. I used some red ones from that, and then also I filled in with just a bit more gold splatter anywhere that I felt like it kind of needed a little something. But this one's a lot of white space, super clean and simple, and so when you look at it, the coloring is what kind of jumps out at you. I am going to go ahead and trim off anything that is hanging over the edge, which was really just mostly leaves. There is one bloom, I think, where I had to cut off a quarter of it. But then that way it uses the stamps differently, so it isn't just like this one stalk flower with some leaves and another flower behind it. Not that that's not pretty, it is, but I think that that's the kind of the obvious one. And I just wanted to show you guys that there was a different approach to get the flowers on your card in a way that was interesting. So here's those red gems that we talked about, and then once I get these in place, I am going to move on to the next card, which is still clean and simple, but is a bit more dramatic simply because we used a dark background. Those darker colors just have a tendency to be a bit more dramatic. So in this one, I am using, the last one we used white cardstock on and matted it with red. This one we're using black cardstock and matting it with white. And then we're going to build our little centerpiece without the lantern. So I knew the candles were going to be the center portion of the piece that we were building. So I went ahead and popped those up using some pop dots, but I did not remove the release paper. I'm just going to lay them there while I kind of glue everything else down around it. And I did play with, I'm not just going in there and haphazardly gluing stuff down. I did play around with this before I turned on the camera to record it. So I knew that I was going to have like the little berry picks on the left and right hand sides. So I would have some symmetry. And then I also am going to add in my little holly leaves. I could have done holly on the other side as well, but instead I chose to fill in that gap with a little bit of pine. Again, this is just going to kind of mix up the arrangement and make it a little bit more interesting. I am going to use the other piece of pine to kind of tie everything together at the bottom. So I removed my release paper. I've put my candles down. There's nothing wrong with it the way that it looks now, but I wanted to use these little, I wanted to use little bells. I think the bells are darling. And then I put in this pine. Here is the problem. I did not account for the fact that I put the foam tape so far down that the pine needed to be tucked in just a little bit more. And so I do end up having to move it. And that's okay. Sometimes we do. And you'll see that I end up actually moving it more. I think I end up moving it more than once because I kept trying to stick it down and it wouldn't go. I might have cut that part out. I can't remember, honestly. But I went to put it back in and I still couldn't get it to fit. And it was because of like the widest part of the pine just wouldn't fit up there as nicely as I needed it to. So what I ended up doing was just cutting it off. Nobody's going to see it anyway because it's going to be underneath. So if it's in the way, it's totally fine. Like, just like with die cuts, like if they're not fitting in your arrangement like you need them to and you can just tear them in half, sometimes you just got to cut off a piece so that you can tuck it in and it looks the way that you want it to look, which is, here I was much happier with this. Now, if you guys watch my channel, you know that I do not love a white outline. In the other card, it made sense because our background was white. In this card, it does not because our background is black. So I am using just a little bit of foam tape to tuck underneath the bells to make them more secure. And these are Honeybee's foam strips. But then I am also going to tuck just a little bit underneath the sentiment to make sure that's flush. And then I am going to go in and I am going to color in this outline black. So for the pine, I did that same kind of flicking motion that I did to fill in the color because it wouldn't be solid. You know, you would still have some of that green and stuff coming through. But for the rest of them, I pretty much just went around with this is a black 100 Sharpie. I did have to lift up some of the elements a little bit so I could get back underneath there. It probably would have been smarter to color them beforehand, but in coloring them black, I am going to lose the line for my berries here in these little picks. But don't worry, we're gonna fix that as well. Those berry line, like the stems, will come back. But I just feel like the coloring just pops so much more when you're not competing with that white outline, and you're just letting those super pretty complementary colors kind of just shine for themselves. I love a dark background. I love a dramatic background. So here I'm using a gold, this is a Jelly Roll gold metallic pen, and I'm going in and just redrawing in those lines for the berries. They don't have to be perfect. As long as you're drawing in some stems that are all going in the same direction, don't fret about it. I added a little bit of gold to my bells as well as to the flames of the candles. And then I'm going to go in now with a white gel pen. I'm going to add some highlights to the berries. And then I'm also going to add a highlight to my bells. And I think that's it. I think just berries and bells is what I added the highlights to. Oh no, I did do the flames. I apologize. And then for this one, this is that metallic mix I was telling you about. So I'm using the shiny gold pearls to just kind of accent this and fill it in a little bit nicer, add a little bit more shine. You guys know how I feel about my shine. In the wrap-up photo that you're about to see, it shows all 3 cards. That one in the middle features the lantern. It is a different technique, and we will see that in a video here soon. I hope that you guys are super excited about these sets. Please head over and check out Honeybee's new release. It's really amazing. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video.